Hi, this is Dr. John Whitcomb talking about Mitochondria Primer Part 2, the Electron Transport Chain. This is where the real crux of life on planet Earth happens, and it's important. It sounds like heavy science, but it's very important because a lot of problems in health and how long you live all start with the problems associated with your mitochondria. So it's important to sort of understand just what's going on. What mitochondria do is they are your energy factories in your body, and they extract energy from energy-rich fuel such as fats or carbohydrates. And they do that by taking high energy electrons stored in fats and proteins and carbohydrates and extract the energy of those electrons, and they move them down into lower energy states attached to oxygen, water. And in doing so, they get the latent energy that plants have stored when they capture energy from the sun and put those electrons back into a higher state. And plants capture that energy and store it, and they manufacture carbohydrates and fats, and animals then can use them to burn them in their mitochondria. The method by which it does that is there are 4 complexes of proteins in your mitochondria that begin to separate the electron from the proton. And what they're essentially doing is putting the proton behind a dam. And that dam is like pumping water up a hill so that you can then get the energy out of it as it comes back down again. So you have high energy electrons and protons being separated from one another in 4 complexes. The problem is that electrons aren't reliable little characters. They are sometimes waves and sometimes particles. And your electron transport chain can't always figure out which is which. And what really happens is that when you have too many of them backed up behind and you aren't using the energy, is you change the ratio of what's being burned to what's being used. And that causes problems. But the electrons can slip away. We have a compound called CoQ10 that captures them, if you have enough CoQ10. And we'll get to that in a couple of weeks. But right now we want you to know that the electron transport chain separates high energy electrons from their protons, and then their proton comes down back again across the membrane, turning complex number 4. That's really the world's smallest, tiniest engine, a tiny little machine that turns as the proton travels down across that membrane and attaches energetic phosphate to ADP. Now, ADP has 2 phosphates, diphosphate, and when you get the third, it's called triphosphate. And ATP is your energy molecule in your cell. What's the summary of what you really need to know? What you really need to know is we have this ingenious mechanism of separating out the energy and extracting the energy by first separating electrons from protons, putting the protons behind a membrane, and then letting that proton run a tiny little engine that spins, attaching phosphate to ATP. In the meantime, we have this protective molecule called CoQ10 that's meant to protect us if it can. But every now and then, electrons get away, and that's what ATP is there for. And when they get away, they make reactive oxygen species that are quite damaging. Now listen to this tape a second time, see if you can understand it. Where the implications of it work out are places like carbon monoxide poisoning. Carbon monoxide plugs up that electron transport chain. So does cyanide. So those 2 poisons work very rapidly. Right now it's the beginning of winter. People are turning their furnaces on all over the place. If you turn your furnace on and you get a headache and everybody starts feeling nausea and sick in your house, get out of the house. You may have carbon monoxide poisoning. Go get a carbon monoxide monitor to check your home. That's what goes wrong in the electron transport chain. There's more to do. We'll give that next week. Meantime, this is Dr. Whitcomb, John Whitcomb, talking about Mitochondrial Primer Part 2, the electron transport chain.